Today's lecture is about reports and proposals, or proposals and reports. It is important to know about proposals and reports because you have to write lots of proposals and lots of reports, either during your study here or after your studies. Both cases, you have to write them. So in this lecture, we will concentrate on what is expected in a proposal, what is expected in a report, how to make your proposal convincing that it attracts the attention of the reader. The reader, the one who reads it, say, okay, this is good, let's go for it. You should convince him or her. What about a report? Report is something you write after you did some job. Normally, you have done some task, maybe an interim report, maybe a final report, right? You want to report about something. That is the second part. So today I will concentrate on the proposal only. At the end of today's lecture, I wish you could be able to know what is expected in a proposal, what is expected in a report, and you will be able to write, you will be able to make up some effective proposals and effective reports. Reports and proposal, both of them all on the purpose that you write for some purpose and you write for some audience. You are writing for somebody in specific. Proposal is where you look for some problem, you identified something and you say, okay, for this situation, you want to write a response for that issue. For example, right now we have an issue with the internet, for example, or with the network. You want to write about it. You want to say, this is an issue, this could be sorted out by considering this. This is a proposal. When you talk about a report, you have a problem for which you have found a solution and you have some recommendation over it. You are writing after analyzing the situation, after looking at it, after recommending some suggested solutions and so on. So that will be the report. So you have a report, you also have a proposal. For the proposal, you have a marriage proposal. For example, someone wants to marry somebody, they submit or they give a proposal. Proposal might be written, might be spoken, might be different types here. The situation is when you submit a proposal, you will indicate it in a convincing message because the recipient should be convinced by what you are saying. So simply a proposal can be of two situations. Situation one, solicited proposal. Situation two, unsolicited proposal. What is the difference between them? In the case of solicited proposal, somebody asked you to submit something. There was a request for a proposal, a request for a quotation, request for a bid, for example, or information for a bid. In response to that request, you are submitting your request. Sorry, you are submitting your proposal. So the proposal is submitted as a response to the request. That is called solicited proposal. What about unsolicited proposal? Unsolicited proposal is something where you are initiating yourself. Nobody asked for anything, but you are providing something. Okay, you think there is a problem and the way you want to sort it out is going to be useful for the company, useful for the customer. You come up with an idea, you write a proposal. He did not ask for it. The customer never asked you for anything, but you are writing, hoping, expecting that what you are suggesting is useful for them. Understood? This is called unsolicited proposal. When you write a proposal, there are two parts, two types you could write on. One is called formal, the other one is called informal proposal. Let's assume you are going to write something and the amount of information you want to write is quite short, less than, for example, 5 pages. You don't need a table of contents for it. Also, you don't have many attachments to it, meaning you don't have appendices, a lot of appendices to it. Then you could submit it as an informal proposal. It's quite small, not very detailed, small enough. But if you have to write something with lot of appendices, lot of references, and you want to give them as attachment, plus you're going to write in such a way certain parts of that document is needed for certain people. So that means you will have a lot of things to indicate. lot of things to write. So once the document is quite complex, quite huge, you need to provide a table of contents. You must have a table of contents. Otherwise, how would somebody understand it? How would somebody follow it? How would somebody go to the right section there? These are issues. Okay. So this is when you use a formal. Formal is longer with much detail, with attachments. It looks more professional with the table of contents and so on. Informal, no, it is shorter version. Let me go further. What is expected in such a proposal? Right? What are the contents of a proposal? For example, if you are writing a formal proposal, you start with a cover page or a title page. Sometimes you start with the letter. You start with the letter followed by the cover page. Sometimes you start with a cover page followed by a letter. Both are possible. Okay. Both options are allowed. Okay. What are the contents of a cover page? In the cover page, you indicate the title of the project, title of the proposal, followed by to whom you are writing and who is writing, your name, your details, plus the date of submission, the date in which you are submitting this proposal. These things are expected in the cover page or the title page. The next one is the letter or memo of transmission, or it's called transmitted. Transmittal or transmitted. Letter is normally written if you are writing between two different organizations. If you are writing within an organization, then normally we use a memo. But in any case, in the letter, don't use any technical document, technical words, not document, technical terms, not jargons. Don't use jargon, because normally this letter is to be read by the manager, who is not a technical person. So you need to be clear cut what you are writing. Keep it simple and keep it precise that the manager can understand. And you divide your letter into three parts, three paragraphs. Paragraph 1, it's called as an introductory paragraph. Paragraph 2, this is where you say what is the use of this proposal, what is the benefit of this proposal. Paragraph 3, it is a concluding paragraph. Here you will say how or what is expected next. What is next? Should I contact you? You will contact me. What is the procedure? So in the introductory paragraph, you will relate request to the response. For example, if there was an advertisement, you say based on your advertisement, based on your request, I'm providing this. So you link these two things. That is the introductory paragraph. And generally, the starting paragraph and the ending paragraph are quite short. You don't keep it long. Right? And you write this letter. In this letter also, you tend to write your name clearly, because if they want to send a response back to you, they look for your name. They have to write it to you. They cannot write to CPIT 221, CITKU Jeddah. No, it should be clear to whom they are responding to. So indicate the name clearly. The next content, next expected part of a formal proposal is, okay, we will discuss about it. I will show you an example and answer how to write. Okay, we'll discuss. We'll come back. The table of contents. Please make sure it is visual. Make it look. It is very important to make the table of. If it is not nice, people will not. How to make it nice? Organize them into different headings, different levels, sub levels, and so people can understand. This is page, that page number. They can go to the page. Please provide the headings in some structure format. Don't just write each heading as 4 lines, 3 lines, like a paragraph, like a sentence. No, make it clear, precise and concise. These are the important things to make a table of content. After the table of content, you have what is called executive summary. This is like your abstract. What you have in this here? What do you write here? The abstract should be self-contained as possible. What do you mean by self-contained? If somebody reads it, somebody reads the abstract, he or she should understand the whole idea. You should not tell them, okay, go to refer to section 1, section 2 for this, for that. No. Executive summary has the problem, has the solution for the problem, indicates some cost factor involved, indicates some benefits of this proposal. All these things should be there in the executive summary. You have the problem, you have the solution, you have the benefits, maybe they are highlights, right? What is the success of it? What is the use of it? Also the financial aspect of it. These things should be available in the executive summary. So cover page, letter, then you have the table of contents, then you have the executive summary. These are all small parts, followed by introduction. Introduction, you divide the introduction into multiple sections, multiple subheadings. Okay, you have many headings here. In the introduction, what is expected is a purpose statement, something clear cut. What is the purpose of this? What is the use of this proposal? What is it you're trying to say? Indicate the problem, describe the problem, indicate the scope. The scope is very important, because if you say your proposal is going to solve a problem, and you have to limit the scope. If you keep it open, it means it solves every problem in that domain. It is very difficult, right? You have a scope. And then you also indicate what is the section, what are the things that follows the introduction here. So you will say, okay, here is my purpose, here is the description of the problem, here is the scope, and read following, you will have this in the next part of this proposal. One important thing, am I repeating? Yes, I am repeating. I described the problem. I said what is the problem in the executive summary. We also said about it in the abstract to some extent. Now we are repeating here. Again in the introduction. Are we repeating? Yes, we are repeating. Are we supposed to repeat? Yes, we are supposed to repeat. So here you are repeating things here. But in the executive summary, you are restriction. You are quite short. You did not write in elaborate mode. Here you can write slightly in elaborate mode. This is the advantage of the introduction and the depth at which you could write. You could use some little more information, little more technical stuff can be added under introduction. Then you do your proposal, you're going to divide the remaining into some topics. Please don't write it as discussion sections. You write in a name that is attractive to the reader, that will convince the reader, that will make the reader, oh, this is important, let me read it. The title will be precise and interesting to the reader. Okay? So if let's say we send you an email, CPIT 221, and that's it, maybe you will not bother. Maybe right now you might bother, but you might not have bothered earlier. If somebody says CPIT 221 bonus mark, this bonus makes you, active. Immediately you start reading. So similarly, write something that interests the reader. Okay? And when you take some write-up, you divide it into 3 parts. One of them is the technical part, second one is the management part, third one is the cost-effective part. 3 parts. Remember, each of these parts will be read by different people. Technical part, maybe the technical person is going to read it. So what you should do, you should think, what are the doubts, what are the concerns the technical person has, and answer them here. So pre-think. You think yourself, what is the concern you have? Write it there. They might think there's a problem in this proposal due to this issue. But indicate it there. Regarding the management section, management part, you can write about how long you need to do this proposal, how many people you need it, when could you start it, like a timeline, like a time frame. Indicate all these things there. When we go into the next part, which is a cost part, when you write about the cost, this is the financial aspect. You got to indicate what is the importance of paying this much money. Well, when you go to buy a mobile phone in the supermarket, mobile phone in some places, you go around, what do you see? In front of every phone, maybe in some of these malls, they have 2 things. One, the price. One, some main points. They target what you are looking for. You are looking for battery time. It can stand long. Okay. What's our amperes? What ampere hours? Okay. They indicate this. Then they have another one. Oh, the size of the screen. 3. Maybe there is something else, Android version or iPhone, whatever. So they indicate some points here, and at the end there is a price tag. Let's say you are going to buy any electrical equipment, like let's say a refrigerator. You go around, want to buy it. What do you look for? There is a price tag, yes. But in front of the fridge, maybe on the fridge itself, a sticker. They have a sticker. In the sticker, it says 5-star, 6-star, okay, A, B, C level, something. This is energy saver or power saver. Once you see a fridge which can save power, you want to buy it. Even though it is little bit expensive, maybe it is slightly costlier, you still want to buy it. Why? Because it will give you a good return in terms of electric bill. So this is what, even if your product is of good cost, little bit high cost, still you can say what is the return you will get by investing on this. By investing this, by putting this effort, you get good marks, you get good grade, you get this. So you indicate the cost factor there. So these are the 3 parts of your main meat, main content of the proposal, of the FAR proposal here. Then you have what is called as the conclusion. What do you have in the conclusion? What you conclusion? In the conclusion part, you be the main benefit. Do you follow me? In the initial letter, you wrote what is the main benefit. In the executive summary, you indicated the benefits. And then again, you are repeating here also. Even in the introduction, it is there. Everywhere it is there. Third up, there is also a summary of the work to be done, what you have to do, which is again there in the management part of your body, me. Then you also have to say how to convince, how to make sure the reader is assured of your work. You should say, this is good, go for it. So you should have this kind of words in the conclusion. Okay? This is what is expected in a conclusion. Now let us move into informal proposal. Do we write informal proposal? Yes, sometimes you need to. For example, let's say we need to buy some software, some hardware in our department. Okay? You could write to the chairman as a small note, as an informal proposal. This is necessary for this purpose and so on. But you could write them. And remember, even the informal proposal is also persuading something. You are trying to put an idea on forth. This is very good idea. It is very important. Let's go for this. This has these benefits for the department and so on. When you will choose an informal proposal over a formal proposal, I've already told you, if your document is short, no more than 5 pages, excluding the attachments, okay? Excluding the attachment, if it is no more than 5 pages, then you go for. And remember, if in case you have to write a long one, please go for the formal. Forget about informal, go for the formal. Okay? And if you already know the client is ready, they want it to be quicker and they are almost there, quickly submit an informal one and catch the game for the proposal to be accepted. Now, I have said to you about formal, I have talked to you about informal. What is the difference? What do you expect to write in an informal proposal? If I explain this slide, you will tell me, doctor, you told us so many things and you keep repeating. What is this? Yes, again, I'm going to repeat. Informal proposal, you say purpose, you indicate the background, you say the solution, you also show the cost, you also write the conclusion. I said everything before, I'm repeating. Nothing new, I'm just repeating. So now you will ask me, look, you kept repeating everything today. What is this? Yes, the amount of information you write is a confined word, a short version. For example, in the purpose, you write clearly, right? Clearly and concisely, so the reader knows immediately why you are writing this. What is the importance of this? Okay. Number 2, provide the background information, okay, so that the guy who is reading will understand the idea, the proposal better, and indicate your suggested solution. Also indicate the cost. What is the cost factor involved? How much has to be on it? Finally, the conclusion. Again, conclusion will be repeating things there. So these are parts of your informal proposal. Now I will take some examples with you. Here is an example of a proposal, right? Look at this example. It is a formal proposal example. Let's look at this example here. Proposal for supplying cheek cam cleat spacers. This is something useful for sailors, something that is useful for sailors. What do you do in your cover page here or the title page? You say the title and then you say prepared by so and so, prepared for so and so. Now we go back to the question. I told you to write your name, but you did not write your name here. What is this? So you could ask me, look, you told me to write the name, but you are not writing any name here. Why? Because I am emphasizing this is the product of my company, not me. So I say prepared by company name. Then what you do next? You say prepared for. Prepared for whom? Prepared for somebody. So here you write the name of the person, the concerned person himself. Please note, when you write names, you have to be very careful. You don't write names wrongly or you don't misspell them. Because by misspelling, meaning they will think you are not serious about it. They will think these guys are not serious. Okay. So it will not give you a good response. Your proposal will not be accepted by writing wrong names. So you have to write the name to whom you are writing to, and the name of the recipient company, and the time, right, followed by some pictures to make it look beautiful or nice. The second one, which is the letter. In the letter, normally what you do in your letter, you write them as this. You write them in your letter pad or a letterhead. In your letterhead, you write the date and you indicate to whom you are writing. From whom you are writing to, so and so person, right? And then you also say what is designation. He is the president, he is the CEO, CTO, whatever. Indicate it and the company details. Please note, at the end of this letter, you say sincerely, right? And write your name here. Don't forget your name. You have to write your name. Here is where there is a concern. Some people ask us, should I write, if let's say I'm Bukhari writing, should I write Bukhari or Buhari? It depends on the culture, depends on the environment in which you are writing. In some countries, if you write Dr. Bukhari, it is valuable. In some places, if you put Dr. Bukhari, they will think what this guy is trying to tell, right? So it depends on according to which environment you are writing. Be careful to whom you are writing. Even I could tell you something, right? So you write your name, you say your position and your company name. Why I need to write my name here, my designation? Because the recipient, when they want to reply back to me, they will write Bukhari, so and so. They will write. So we need them to use a name to reply. Them not write a letter to whomsoever concerned, to the person in charge, IT department. Like this, no, doesn't make sense, right? It should be clearly with the name. Then you have to salute the person with his name. Dear Mr. So and so. Here is an issue. Should we use the first name, last name? It depends. Again, it depends on the culture. It depends on the environment. In some places, we call them by their first name. In some places, we call them by their last name. Some countries have 3 names. Some countries have longer names. Right? You got to know what is the name which is commonly used in that place, in that vicinity. Accordingly, you write. Here you see it says, Dear Mr. Begini, right? His last name. They are using his last name here, right? And then please watch out. When you write the letter, you have the letter divided into 3 main parts or 3 main paragraphs. 3 parts. First paragraph is introductory. Second paragraph is the meat, like benefits, usefulness of your work. Last paragraph is concluding. Concluding doesn't mean you switch off the phone. Not like this. Concluding means what to do next. Right? So you write a letter to somebody. Look at this. I enjoyed talking to you last week about inventory needs at the Boson store. So he says, look, we talked to you before. And relating the previous discussion with the current letter. Link. Let's say you are writing in response to an advertisement. You link that advertisement to this. Right? I talked to you last week about something. So he is saying he didn't forget the last week talk. He's saying, see, I'm still linking you. In response to your interest in our products, I'm submitting this proposal to supply your store with cam cleat spacers. So I'm proposing. I want to supply you something. Okay, you want to supply me, you will not give me for free. What is the benefit? That comes next. This proposal outlines the benefits of adding clean spacers to your line of sailing accessories. The potential of high scale volume stems from the fact that the product satisfies two main criteria. Here I am trying to bring the benefits here. For any boat owner, and then it says the benefit. It enhances the appearance of the boat. It makes the boat easier to handle. 2 points. These are the 2 points. When the manager looks at it, you look at this point. Straight the eyes go to the points. You read the points. Good. Keep going. Then you write, your store managers will share my enthusiasm for this product when they see the response of their customers. Look at this, what he is doing. I'm writing to you. Now I'm slowly pulling your people to me, saying, look, if your manager sees this, they will be very much happy because the customer will say, excellent. So I'm trying to pull the manager on my side. I didn't leave it there. I say, I will give you a call next week to answer any question you have about this proposal. So I said, don't worry, I'm going to get back to you. I'll call you after 1 week time. Don't say you'll call next minute. So you indicate when you will call back. These are the points. Is that clear? And if your company has a reference number for a document, indicate the reference number here. That means you are valuing this communication. You are not just writing for random. You have some records for it, right? These are the points. Then you have what is called the table of contents. Please note, in the previous lecture, okay, with Dr. Ryan, you might have studied about styles. He might have shown you some styles in Microsoft Word, which could be very useful for you. Here is where it will be beneficial. Please stop creating table of contents manually. Never do this. If you do, you will waste your time, number one. Number two, you tend to make lots of mistakes. Possible. Because you have to write page numbers. One thing, go from one page to another, you have to change everything. It's a nightmare for you. So when you organize your document, make it in a visually appealing way. Look at this. At the start of this document, I have this. This is a table of content. You like it? No, I don't like it. Why? Everything same level, no sub level, nothing. Right? So organize them into proper levels. And they should be grouped nicely. So for example, if I am a technical guy, I want to look for something, I need to know, oh, HS is a good one. Let's go there for me. Somebody new, want to read the background? Yes, I know in the introduction. Right? So make things clear. In a longer report, you also have list of figures, list of tables. These things are also part of a longer report. Next one is the executive summary. What do you have in the executive summary? Are you repeating? Are you going to repeat, Dr. Bukhari, today? Yes, I will read a lot of time. But I'm going to follow the words here, which make the same sound. So I will repeat the same sound again. Right? So this proposal outlines features of a custom-made accessory designed for today's sailors, whether they be racers, cruisers, or single-handed skippers. By the way, there are some terms here maybe we don't know. Does not matter. We are only trying to see what is expected. So here it says this proposal outlines features. So you are saying that main components of what? Custom made accessory. It is an accessory designed for somebody. And you are saying it could be for different type of people. The product Ecam Cleat spacers have been developed for use primarily on Catalina 22. It's a specific type of a boat. A boat owned by many customers of this. What are you trying to say here? You are trying to say, look, I'm the supplier, but I also know your customers. I do understand your business. By saying many customers who are of your company, I know them, they have this boat. So for that boat, the one I'm suggesting is a good one. However, it can also be used on other sailboats. Because if you say this equipment is only for one boat type, the reader might not be interested. They say, only one boat, I have so many boat types, what is this? And you also say, however, it can be used for others. And don't make it others and stop there. It means you don't know your business clearly. So here you say on other sailboats in the same class, same type, same model. These are things you need to be clear. So don't overclimb, also don't underclimb. Don't make it too low, don't make it too high. It is unclear. Then you say, you write, the predictable success of this is based on two important questions asked by today's sailboat owners. Ask these two important questions. Will the accessory enhance the boat's appearance? You see this one, boat's appearance, the same thing he wrote in the letter. He said it will give a good appearance for the boat. Will it make the boat easier to handle? Yes, he said that also there. So he is asking himself a question which he has answered before. In the letter he answered to you. Now he is making you ask this question. And later on he will answer this question as well. Okay. You see, the proposal answers both these questions in a resounding affirmative, very strongly, by describing the benefits of this to thousands of people in your territory. So to many people, not one, two, many in your territory who own boats for which the product is designed. Product is designed for them. So you have a good business. That is the meaning. It didn't stop there. It didn't stop there. Any time in a business, one of the important factor is profit, money. Correct? He writes here, this potential market, along with the product's high profit margin. Here is where he is catching the business. The store holder will think, store manager, look, I have high profit margin, and there are so many people to buy. I have a good chance. Will make Ecam Cleat Spacers a good addition to your line of sailing accessories. Okay. So next is the introduction. In the introduction, again I repeat, the purpose of this proposal is to show that Ecam Cleat Spacers will be a special practical addition to the product line at the Boson Locker Marine Supply Store. It is very useful for you. This introduction highlights the need for the product as well as the scope and format of the proposal. So here you say, look, in this introduction, I will answer you. I will tell you what is important, why it is important, what is the scope of it. I'm going to tell you, please wait, it will follow now. Background. Here you write some background. Sailing has been gained popularity in the recent years. High number of island impoundments as well as vitality of boating on the Great Lakes has spread the popularity of the sport. So you are saying many people started doing this. With this increased interest, more and more sailors have become customers for a variety of boating accessories. So they need this. They need lots of accessories. What kind of accessories were sailors looking for? So you are building up towards a question, and then you are answering those questions. So you are building up your question. What is the question you are building up? You are saying, look, there are so many people who need this. There is a lot of interest in this area. People have these kind of boats. Okay. And then you say they need accessories. Then you ask your own self question. What kind of accessories they are looking for? And you answer them. Accessories that enhance appearance of their sailboat. Again, same thing. From start, you see, I repeat. Appearance was there in the letter. Again, repeat. And make their sailboat easy to handle. Repeat again. And consequently more enjoyable to sail. With these customer criteria in mind, it is easy to understand the running joke. So he is making some joke here. Leave that one. The development of this particular product originated from our designer's first-hand sailing experience. Now he's trying to show the customer. You're trying to tell the customer, look, I'm not just making it up. I do have experience in this. I have experience. I have done some study. I have done some analysis as well. So look at this. First-hand sailing experience on the Catalina 22, knowledge obtained during manufacturing and testing of the first prototype. In addition, we conducted a survey. So you're not leaving there. You say, we conducted a survey, right, on this. And the results show that the winch and cam cleat designs are major concerns for the people, for the owners, boat owners. So now you make up. You say, okay, look, it's a good product. It has many things. It is beneficiary for the sailor, and we have tested it. We have also seen it. It is good. Now, next, you got to answer some main concerns of the customer and the shop owner or the businessman. So here you say the proposal contains this: practicality, suitability, high quality, dealer benefit, because the dealer looks for the dealer benefit. Affordable price. What about the market? Is it only 10 people, 100 people? What is it? So here, look at the title: features and benefits. But the title that is active. Don't just write anything you come into your mind. Yes, in your first draft, write anything. But later on, you got to enhance. You got to write it more precise, more nicely, attracting the reader. Peak complete spaces offer Boson's locker marine supply, the best of both worlds. On one hand, the product solves a nagging problem for sailors. On the other hand, it offers you, your store managers, a good opportunity for profitability. Saying two things: one for the sailor, one for you, the dealer. Here are the 6 main benefits. Don't say 6 benefits, 6 main. Maybe there are many others which I am not mentioning here. Right? You keep the reader, the dealer, thinking. He's saying main. Oh, there is some more left. Maybe it will come. You keep them under expectation. Obviously, you should do something. If there is nothing, don't overclaim here. Practicality. This product both functional and practical when installed in the typical arrangement as shown in figure below. So here you have a figure. See, one of them has a spacer, the other one don't have a spacer. Anyway, raises the height of the cam clip, thereby reducing the angle between the deck and the sheet as it feeds downward from the winch. As a result of this increased height, a crew member is able to cleat a sheet with one hand instead of. Look at this line. He's saying, usually we use 2 hands to operate. Now one hand is enough. In my case, with this equipment, one hand is good enough. So you say, what is the benefit of using one hand? Why don't you use 2 hands? What is the problem? Such an arrangement allows a skipper to maintain steerage of the boat, keeping one hand on the helm while cleating the sheet with the other. So you one hand for something else, other hand for this job. Securing the sheet in this manner can be done more quickly and securely. So you could do things quicker, faster, effectively, and efficiently. Also, this installation reduces the likelihood of sheet popping out of the cam cleat during a sudden gust of wind. Look, these words are very nicely chosen. Why? He is saying it not only helps you to make things quicker, it also reduces some problems, a potential problem. It is not removing the whole problem, it is reducing. Don't say remove the whole problem, then they will have doubt, are you overclaiming here? Right? Then it talks about suitability for the variety of sailors. So it is beneficiary for so many people, right? And in a tight racing situation, it could be a deciding factor. He says, look, this equipment helps you in this, and that one can be a deciding factor if you are going for a race. So if you are going for a race and something is a deciding factor, you go for it. You want to buy a bicycle, and if there is some feature in the bicycle that can make it go faster, and you can win the race, okay, then you will look for that one, right? If you can drive a bicycle while sleeping, then you will see, oh, this is good, let me go for it. So this is an option you will go for. As a cruising, sailor is primarily concerned with relaxation and pleasure. So they are looking for 2 features, and both of them are provided by this device, this product. This is what you are trying to say, right? Also, in a cruising journey, in the journey on the sea or the boat, whatever, there are many guests, and you want to provide them some happiness of the boat. They have to know that the skipper has full control. So you want to show the skipper can maintain control here, right? So he can have single-handedly get benefit because of this teak cam cleat spacer. And what about the quality? You say this is made up of teak wood, which is good. It does not get rotten quickly. It does not vanish quickly, and Remember, the deck of the sailboat is made up of fiberglass, and teak wood with polished one with the fiberglass looks nice, beautiful. Okay, so its appearance, its quality is good. Okay, it's all good. What about the financial factor? The dealer gets good benefit out of it. Why? Because a customer who will come to buy this, not only buy this, will buy something else extra. There's another accessory also needed. So you will increase your business, right? So you will save the dealer. Dealer can save the customer the time and trouble fabricating makeshift spacious. They don't need to. The customer don't need to make something themselves. It is already available. What about the market? Yes, you talk too much. What about the market? Is there only 2 people, 10 people? Remember we said earlier there is a survey we did it. Now you see, okay, peak complete spaces are designed with a large growing potential in the market. They are custom made for a specific type, which is very popular now. More than 13,000 of these sailboats have been manufactured today. So meaning there's a big business around. Okay, and it could also be applied to other similar class. Again, you are repeating. It's not only the 13K. There are also other boats. So you have good business around. What about the price? So here you indicate the price now. Wholesale price is so much. Retail price, this is what we are suggesting. So with the low price, okay, you could make a good profit. With the high profit margin, should be an incentive for the store manager. And finally, you end up in the conclusion. Okay, why should Reliance supply dealer consider carrying this one? So you are now questioning again. Why do you need it? And then you answer them. What are the 2 common criteria for any owner? 1, appearance. 2, easier to handle. Both of these repeat. These points are repeated often and on. Repeated at many places. Then you summarize the benefits of your product. You will say you could handle it quickly with one hand, suitable for variety of them, high quality. It is good for the dealer because the customer can get other products as well. It has good market. It has good margin. All the points you wrote there, you summarize them here in the conclusion. These are the things you write in a proposal. Okay? I think I've made it clear in the proposal what is expected, what you have to write. So keep this in mind. Yes, first of all, you can write a draft which has a lot of things inside, not well written. It's fine. Then you go through them, fine tune them slowly. Most importantly, you need to be thinking as the receiver, as the customer, to know what the customer is expecting from you. Accordingly, we emphasize. Accordingly, you write. Don't write this product provides millions of benefits. And this overclaim. Okay, don't make any overclaim, and appropriately you should write. And always keep in mind, if you read some of these documents, okay, some of these adverts, there is also a small glitch there. There's a small written statement at the bottom. Based on some conditions, it might change, right? So carefully you should frame your proposal.